of Stories from Ukraine from Borderlands Foundation. I'm Sam Cook, your host on the show and the founder of the Borderlands Foundation. And just a quick reminder, our goal here on this show is to shine a light on the unsung heroes who've done extraordinary things in the war against the Russian invasion in Ukraine. We focus on Tuesdays on refugees and volunteers, people affected by the war by no choice of their own. On Thursdays, we interview military experts, military figures, both regular Army and territorial defense fighters. And all are telling extraordinary stories that really give you the ground truth on what's happening in this great struggle in Ukraine for the future of the West. So before we dive in and I introduce today's guests, feel free to drop a question in the comments below during the show, and I'll do my best to ask Yurii, Glenn, and David any of the questions you put there. So this is interactive. We are watching your comments wherever you are. And on tonight's show, we have Yurii, who's been on a number of times, who just got back and did a personal visit to Irpen. And he's going to share with us an in-depth reflection and some videos of what he saw out there. But before we get to that, I want to start with Glenn and David and just set the scene on where are we, because a lot's happened since last Thursday when we discussed what could happen. And we have seen Glenn, what have we seen in the last week? It's a lot has happened.
We've seen
lots.
We've seen lots. Well, obviously the big thing around Kyiv is that the forces around Kyiv withdrew. And partially that was because they couldn't get forward, and partially because I think that the Russians understood that they were going nowhere anywhere, and that if they needed to actually to have a political win, then that political win wasn't going to be Kyiv for the moment, was most likely to be around Donbass or the south. And I'll talk about those two afterwards. So they withdrew, and I think as everybody knows, that on withdrawing from Irpin and Bucha, it was discovered a huge mass of atrocities, which I'll let Yurii talk about more afterwards. But those atrocities certainly have made a difference to the perception of a lot of people about the invasion, and suddenly a lot of people who were half-hearted about it have suddenly changed their tune. And 2 days ago, I was on an Indian chat show, and this is the fourth time I've been on the same chat show. So I've been on weekly. And the previous 3 weeks, they were very, very middle of the road in about, this was conspiratorial theory, this was Russia, this was FSB versus the CIA, that America was doing this for power, etc., etc. All the old stories we know about. But this time, the main journalist was really, really solid. He's clearly been heavily shocked by what his journalists, 5 Indian journalists around Bucha, what they'd seen, and the Russian guys who were trying to say that this was a put up and this was all actors and everything else. The Indian journalist was really hitting them hard with, are you saying that these actors burn themselves? Are you saying these actors are putting themselves in black plastic bags? Are you saying these actors shot themselves in the back of the head? And that was such a change from the week before. So I sense that, if a major country like India is suddenly waking up and smelling the coffee, that there will be other countries around the world that are doing so. So the troops withdrew, and they withdrew quite quickly, taking with them every washing machine, hairdryer, ladies' underwear, you name it. They took it with them to send back home, and into Belarus. Now, some of them have now started being moved from Belarusia round to the east, and it's not clear whether they are going to reinforce the area around Kharkiv, or whether they will be put into the battle around the old ATO area, the trench lines, with an aim of trying to cut off the trench lines from north and south. Now, round Kharkiv, they've been hanging on quite well. Kharkiv and Sumy, the people have been hanging on really well there. But
who are you talking about? Russians or Ukrainians?
No, Ukrainians.
Okay.
Sorry, and the Ukrainians are hanging on well, but the Russians are continuing to bombard them with artillery. And although in both Sumy and Kharkiv, they've pushed out and tried to push the artillery away from firing the guns, but some of the longer range rocket launchers and of course the missiles still keep coming in. Down on the east side, there are 3 or 4 of the Ukrainian brigades are actually being squeezed quite hard, and there have been small breakthroughs in several areas where the Russians have actually got through, primarily because the Ukrainians are at times running short on artillery ammunition, and at other times it's just the sheer volume and numbers of the attack. When you get down into the south, then Russians are still primarily holding roads and towns. I mean, they're in strips along the roads, because if they come off the roads, it's too bloody muddy, and so they just seize up. So they are actually stuck on the roads to a large degree. Ukrainians are pushing back, and they're certainly pushing back towards Kherson slowly and steadily. And they're also pushing back in other areas, Kiev, Rig. It looks as though they may have encircled a substantial amount of Russian troops, but we have to wait and see how that pans out in the next couple of days. But the south looks vulnerable to me. It looks very vulnerable to me.
For the Russians.
For the Russians, yeah. And if Ukraine can actually put any troops, extra troops, into there and push hard, I think that a lot of areas the Russians will just fold and start running towards Crimea, which would be a good thing. But of course, the south is quite a wide area. They've pushed hard towards Nikolaev on one side, and the fact that the troops from Nikolaev haven't come out and pushed much eastwards says that actually they're still being pushed quite hard. And of course Mariupol in the south is still being bombarded, but is still hanging on.
And still being resupplied from what I've seen.
Being resupplied. Ukrainians sent 4 helicopters, and 4 helicopters, sadly, one of which crashed on the way back. But 4 helicopters full of supplies. So the boys are hanging on. Azov Battalion are doing wonders. They're doing just like the cyborgs did in Donetsk airport. They're holding their own and they're fighting hard. Now, having said all this, there is another interesting bit, which is that there are rumors that the Russians are going to reinforce Transnistria. They've already started. They've already started sort of work in the airport there, and there is a possibility that they will actually start bringing stuff into Transnistria. Although, don't ask me how they get it there, what flight route they use. I can only assume either crossing Ukrainian airspace down in the very southwest, or trying to cross through Romania, because they certainly are not going to try crossing east-west across the Donbass. So let's see how that pans out. But I know that that there are extra troops being put on the border, because there's a worry that they might come out of Transnistria to try and take Odessa from the from the northwest. So that's where we are, folks. It's relatively in a what can one call it? A time of lots happening, but not much happening in terms of the battle. So we have to wait and see now where Russia actually puts the forces it's taken from Kiev. In fact, if it can put them anywhere, because some of them are in pretty ropey state and need a lot of loving care before they can be put back into the battlefield. And it's entirely possible that on putting them back in, that they will be extremely unhappy bunnies, having been pulled out once, to be put back in to possibly die again. So there's lots to play for, and as someone called it today, round 2 is just about to start, and we will see what happens in round 2. Round 1 went to Ukraine. Now we see what happens round 2.
Well, Glenn, just something I would like to highlight here, and let's bracket a summary of round 1 quickly.
I've lost you, mate. You've gone quiet.
Can you hear me?
No, I can now. Yes.
Yeah. There's been a really good Twitter thread that went viral, which was kind of a first draft of what the Battle of Kiev was, and really what we've been observing for the last, I guess, 6 weeks. Is the original objectives were to change the regime in Kiev, capture, kill Zelensky, force a puppet regime in. And we're going to get to Yurii in a moment, who's going to share with us a personal eyewitness account of the aftermath of this battle. And once we do that, at the end, me, you, and David will go into what could be next with Yurii in terms of what round 2 is. But there's a pretty amazing summary, which I'm sure is incomplete, as all histories are. But it's becoming clear that President Putin literally believed in their war plan that they would topple the regime by lunch. The Gostomel airport seizure was designed to seize the airfield, and then they were supposed to land 7,000 VDV forces at the airport that afternoon around lunchtime. And they were literally going to drive in, as was the plan, to central Kiev, take the TV tower, find the president, and then just say, hey, we're in control. And what stopped that was U.S. intelligence had tipped President Zelensky and the Ukrainians off to that. And when the invasion started, they shot down some of those helicopters with the paratroopers that were coming in. More importantly, the Georgian Foreign Legion Training Brigade went out with a bunch of foreign fighters, from what I understand, plus Ukrainian reserve forces, which were the main forces out there, took that airfield, blew it up. So that really foiled their ability to land the VDV forces and just drive straight into Kiev, because the airfield wasn't working. And then the armored column, which came down, apparently a lot of armored vehicles got right to the outskirts of Kiev and in Gostomel, but they had no fuel. And that fuel was the infamous 40-mile convoy, which we talked about, I think, week 2 or week 3. Look at all these fuelers that are being destroyed. And there was a 30-man drone reconnaissance special team that went out there and took out fuelers, blocked the route. And then I guess the Ukrainians stole the Russian communications net and kept saying, we're coming, and they never were. So the Russians thought, wow, they're an hour away, for 2 weeks. And you had a stranded convoy, or you had a stranded armored force, which their job was to surround Kiev on day 1, 2, and 3. And that force got caught up.
I mean, I think the 40-mile convoy was actually not the front. I mean, that was the second bit, and it only became. It was also battalion groups, but it became a 40-mile convoy because the troops that had gone there first were stopped. So they were stopped in Irpin, and they flooded the river and the floodplain in Irpin, blew the bridge, and so the front troops just couldn't get across. And once you got the front troops stopped there and backed up, then everything that came through that was supposed to just drive down and sort of drive into Kiev had nowhere to go, and so they just stayed on the road. And then, as we saw, gradually that there was a bit of attrition for this, and but it was that. I'm not sure who did the stopping on the front line. I think it was one of the brigades. It was a regular brigade at Irpin that actually stopped the front line. But they had a bloody fight for several days. It wasn't an easy thing at all. So, but they did actually, they stopped them getting into Kiev, which was the main thing. But again, the Russians were not good at things like fire and maneuver. They weren't good at infantry. They weren't good at. I mean, they weren't doing infiltration. Things that we've been taught that to do properly, because they're not trained. So anything that got now, whether they weren't trained because they never thought anybody was going to have to fight, or whether that's just that the consequences of I think it's the consequences of a crap system, basically, that where corruption rules and bullying, corruption, alcoholism, poor leadership, no proper training of officers, no ethics, no anything. So this what we're seeing is the result of that. A mess, an inability to take objectives.
Well, it's becoming clear that the war plan was 4 hours to topple the regime. The backup plan was 3 days to surround the city and pummel it into submission with artillery and armor. And neither one of those worked. The whole force, this massive force from the northwest, got trapped outside of Kiev. And that's what they were stuck for 4 or 5 weeks. And then the aftermath of that is what we're about to hear from with Yurii, which is what did those soldiers do while they're trapped in those different suburbs of Kiev, all these different towns stretching all the way up to the Belarus border. And then we'll go into that with Yurii, and at the end, Glenn, me, you, Dave, and Yurii we'll have a roundtable on what's next in the pending battle for the Donbass. So Yurii, welcome back, and I'll let you share your impressions from what you saw this week, but tell me, how have things been going in your territorial defense unit, and what happened this last week for you, and I'll pull up the video that you want to share.
Yes, I visited Bucha and around Hostomel towns. Also, 2 days ago, I visited Borodyanka. This is like a town approximately the same size of as Bucha, and as Hostomel, maybe a bit bigger. And the damages, civilian damages, is even worse than Bucha. And I sent you some personal photos and videos from that region, and I hope you can show them because this is unforgettable impression. Yes. And before I can start express my my feelings and the situation, I would like to add some information about the first days of war, because I have 2 fighters of Azov in my company, and one was at Hostomel the first day after from that at Hostomel after Russians landed at Hostomel. From that at Hostomel, I hear some echo sound. From that at Hostomel, I hear some echo sound.
You can hear, we're hearing a little bit of echo from.
Some echo sound.
So someone's playing a Facebook. Guys, someone has a video up and running that's echoing.
Just a moment, maybe it's me.
Me, could be me.
Maybe it's you, Yurii. Could be one of you has the video playing on the side. So go ahead, Yurii.
How do you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yes. So the first days, Azov was there at Hostomel. Also, National Guards was there. Also, Special Forces was there, and Russians were met by a huge clash. And also, when this 40 miles or big column, they went from right shore of Dnieper River, and also the big force came from left side of Dnieper, from.
So for those of you, right bank of Dnieper is the west side. And then the left bank is the east side, which is a little bit confusing if you're not from Ukraine.
Yes. So the main brigade that met Russians was 72 mechanized brigade, and they were relocated for the whole front for two sides, and it was a huge mass of Russian tanks, and from western side we did Ukrainians did the right things. They bombed the one of the gate of Irpin, and it left the water level above all western line of defense filled with water. And again, our Tatar walls was very important, yes, because they just we just blown up all bridges, main bridges, and they can only we left only one bridge near Bilogorodka, only one bridge. So they have to go from Borodyanka to Worzel, from the west, from Belarusian border, down to Bucha, Worzel, Bucha, Hostomel, and they tried several times to go through Stoyanka to Bilogorodka to cross the river. And they had several attempts to cross the river. But it was not successful because of huge defense efforts of all united forces, because it was like mix, not just brigade or special forces or territory defense. It was like unique combinations of defense, different groups. So okay, let me talk about Bucha massacre. Yes, let me show just impression.
So Yurii, I'm downloading your video. I will get to it when it's ready. Sorry about the delay. My internet here is not so great, but I'll let you share your reflections and we'll upload it when it's ready.
Yes, so just from personal experience, one of my Azov fighter, who was my programmer, he was citizen of Belarus until 2018. He started in Donbass. His name is Ilya Hrenov, and his military name is Litvin. So he was from the first day of the war, and the group of 24 people from Azov met Russian tanks on the way from Borodyanka to Vorzel. And they organized ambush, and were looking for 3 to 4 vehicles, Russian vehicles, but they appeared about 40. And it was 3rd of March, and a few soldiers was killed. They blown up one truck filled with Russian infantry. They blown up, and maybe you can show some pictures of this KAMAZ, this truck. They carry about 25 Russian soldiers. They were killed, and also 2 infantry. I don't know how it's in English. Infantry truck, light armored vehicle. So two of them were blown up, and I took one part of this vehicle as a memory about Ilya. He was he carried javelin together with him and RPG, and the history of this fight will explain you how defense was, how Ukrainians stopped Russians, because as far as I know, American intelligence forecasted up to four days of defense, and it evacuated all Nabu, all we have some inspections of law, like law police. It was evacuated, law police evacuated a week before start of the war. About 1,500 people. United States, the government of United States evacuated about before 16th of February. So also, as far as you understand, remember, Zelensky was they insisted to evacuate Zelensky out of Kyiv. He refused. Yes. The estimation of forces and invasion intensity was not for Ukrainians, and if they break through the river, I think that no one helped us with Lend-Lease or with additional weapon. So this is because Ukrainians started to fight very ruthlessly and very intensely. Then I think that a lot of countries started to understand that there not be easy war for Russians, and they will not be accepted here. So for my expression, I took the body of my soldier, and I saw him, and also another guy was the son of my territory defense fighter. We came, 2 of us went to Bucha, and we found those bodies. They were just just left. No one could took them. It was about months of time. They were lying there, and body of Ilya was they shoot it from high caliber cannons to infantry. So they Russians were so ruthless that they surrounded this hotel, San Marino, and they shot it from all guns they had, just from armored vehicles, and they even shoot it with directed the special rockets at the vehicles that especially for tanks, it's called Ptur.
Yeah.
So it's like a directed rocket, yes, that are thrown from vehicles.
Sabo rounds.
Yes. And they were started to launch this to the buildings our Azov soldiers were sitting. So they shoot.
Was that where Ilya? Was that where Ilya? Did you go to Irpin to retrieve Ilya's body from Irpin, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And I saw these buildings. So Russians they shot from all weapons they had, even thrown these rockets to the buildings.
Yurii, did they kill all of those Azov soldiers?
No. Only few of them, and they shot approximately so the two equipages of vehicles, of light armored vehicles were destroyed completely. The cannons were thrown out of their corpse, and
this
also
is Ukrainian vehicles.
No, this is Russian vehicles.
Russian vehicles.
Yes, they destroyed two vehicles and one truck filled with 25 infantry. So they were just sitting at the truck. It was not military even truck. It was a National Guard. So it was OMON. It was Belarusian who was with me. They talked that this was the truck that Lukashenko used, to take Protestants from the streets of Minsk.
Protesters.
Yes, protesters.
Yeah.
So it was
Protestants, probably just as bad.
Yes, it's protesters. Sorry. And it was
We're getting into religious wars now. But
Yeah, we get a whole load of.
yeah, Dave said Protestants are off, but Dave and I are on the other side of the divide there. And I grew up in Belfast as a Protestant, Dave. So anyway.
So this car was not military. Yes, this was like a police car. They were ready to fight with Ukrainian protesters. They were destroyed. So I estimate that about 30 Russians was killed in this ambush.
So your friend Ilya was killed during the ambush or after the ambush?
During the ambush.
And they killed 30 or 40 soldiers as part of their ambush.
Yes. After that fight, they were like hidden in this hotel in one like kitchen room. It was in the center of this big restaurant, and they were silent. And after they waited for night, they went out, and they had a few also damaged a few damaged people, and they ran away to home after that. So just a few understanding of what was a village and what town, what situation was around this hotel, and how Russians came to the village, what they did. the tactics was horrible because they were so afraid. They even didn't came in house. They just along the streets, all houses are ruined. And what they did, they just drove by tank on the road, just make first hit to the house, and on just like with a big caliber cannon. And after that, after the first shot to the house, they just run on the gates of the house with a tank, and then they opened the doors and they did what they did. So the tactics was terrible. Just you cannot imagine. They just were driving and shooting all houses. All houses they can shoot. They just shoot it and then come in, take what they want or kill the hosts. And then we see. We just went a few houses near San Marino, near ambush, and we saw outside outside the garden. We saw like earphones, on the gates, some tools for craftsman tools, opened just on the outside the door, outside the house. They were just like choosing what is more valuable, what is less valuable. And also all roads were covered with bodies, and a lot of them were just with bikes, so they were just riding bikes, and was shot down. What else? What was what was the most impression? The biggest impression was that all cars they cut the wheels, the tires of all cars. So what they first did, they shoot the houses, and then they cut tires, not letting any car to drive away. So it was like unimaginable that I see that about 50-100 cars were standing, and almost all of them, not almost all of them, all cars were on damaged tires. So it was like tactics: do not let anyone to leave town.
Wow. Which town was this in, Yurii? This was in Irpen?
Bucha and Irpin, yes. Irpin, it was a multi-floor buildings. I had a talk with the inhabitants, and for example, we came to region where 5 big 9-floor buildings. And in this, usually in this building, there lives about 500 people. And we calculated for 5 buildings was left 77 inhabitants. So for 5 big buildings. Russians were going to flats, yes. And they were looking the address of local deputy of the street. It was like the guys was Asian,
from Eastern Russia.
Like Eastern Russia, yes.
How do you know they were looking for the deputy? Who
the deputy mayor, right?
Deputy mayor. Who
yes,
who said this?
The locals told me how they behave. So they were looking for mayor. They knew where he lived, and they opened the door. They break the door, but it was not there. They were looking for him, and also they were like undressing all inhabitants and checking if they have the tracks of machine gun, to see if there someone is like soldier. So they this is about their tactics for multi-store buildings. For one floor, for houses, because Bucha is like a town with about 50% of inhabitants living in multi-store buildings and 50% in private houses. Yes, in private houses they were like after coming into house, they were taking everything what they wanted, and if someone resisted, they just killed with any hesitation. Just 1 second, and they killed. If they see someone is telling something or like resisting somehow, just they killed without any discussion. So this is also what is very important to understand, because there are a lot of information when you see this by yourself, and when I was told that they were shooting inside the houses, but I told that it's maybe but it's like they like to write something on the walls that for example we will do what we want, or you deserve it, Ukrainians. They have some Russia. They wrote on all walls. They call Russia, and also I didn't understand that before why they shit everywhere. They shit in rooms. They shit on beds of children, and it's hard to understand, but it's like the way they like express their power, that they are strong and you are weak, and we want to to mark the territory, that this is our territory.
Bizarre.
That's a strange way to mark your territory, I guess.
Well, it's animal, isn't it? It's animal. It's exactly what animals do.
Well, it's also, did they just enjoy living in that environment after they marked their territory, or was that just something they did on the way out? Or
also, you have to understand that Bucha is like a very like a cozy place, very nice houses. The forest of like a big forest. It was like a resort for all Kyiv inhabitants. This is like villages that have especially clear air, very lakes. It's like resort zone, and it was made like very beautiful, and these orcs, they were just impressed and like shocked by the beauty of these houses, of how people are living, and they just expressed their that they will make it looks like Russia or something of the kind. I don't know.
they needed to make it feel like home.
Yes, like home, to make it home, make it their home.
Yeah.
Yuck.
So Yurii, I will have your video here uploaded shortly in the next few minutes. Glenn and David, one of the things that just strikes me about the stories and the descriptions here is how how should I put it? Are these? Is this a soldier? Or is this a unit or a gang? And what's the fighting effectiveness of such units? Not only here, but in anywhere else they decide to go.
We've seen this before, right, Sam? Like, this is not dissimilar from the Iraqi army, which is similarly organized, and the leadership structure in the Iraqi army is pretty similar to the Russian army. Right, where there is not a professional non-commissioned officer corps, so it can quickly devolve into, barbarianism, savagery, whatever you want to call it. They're orcs, and there's a complete breakdown in standards, discipline, and you're defecating all over the place. That's where you have to live as an occupying army. You've created an unsanitary environment that you have to exist yourself in if you're going to continue to achieve your strategic aims, right? To become an army of occupation and
Dave, there's a bit you just said, which I jump in with. You said there's a breakdown in discipline and things. I don't think there is. I think this is the normal. I don't think we see something that was different when they went to war.
Right. Yeah.
I think we're seeing them as they are.
Yeah, and that's true. They were never trained. They were never shown what sanitation or good order and discipline actually looks like to begin with. Whether that's actively encouraged or that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. It's probably just the way it is.
Well, Dave, one of the things that I read an article about this, and I think it's important to understand when units are taking the level of losses that they've taken, the Russian soldiers, they're going to be very vengeful back to the entire population from which they took those losses. Even if these people were innocent, they just took revenge on the population. And actually, Dave, you and I saw that among American soldiers in Iraq. It's a temptation every human feels. Yeah. But the difference is the Russian Army officer corps seems to condone and encourage it, versus in the American Army, such retributions on the local population would be investigated and curtailed when they did happen. And they did happen. Let's be honest. There were instances when people suffered ambushes and took it out on the local population. But what appears to be happening here, Yurii, is you're right. Soldiers that are very poor, trying to make themselves feel at home, but also I think it's the Russian military's way of keeping their soldiers motivated. Because if you're allowed to plunder, meaning now it's legal according to the Russian military code of whatever justice they have, rape, obviously, summary executions, that actually keeps their soldiers somewhat motivated when they have horrible discipline otherwise. It gives them something to do that it perversely keeps them intact as a mob of some kind of group of basically they've devolved into being gangs rather than a disciplined military unit.
It gives them something to do other than execute their own commanders.
Yeah,
which we did see some Russian units do, right?
Yeah, Yurii.
What I think is another devastating factor for them is that after they, for example, stuck in Bucha because they could not capture Hostomel, they were they had a lot of damage in Hostomel, and they run away from Hostomel to Bucha because in Hostomel, Hostomel aerodrome is like a big field, and they could be damaged very quick, very fast. They came to Bucha because there are a lot of houses, a lot of buildings. They can hide, under trees and under houses. And after that, they just spent about 3 weeks. Yes, it was like after 24th February, they came about 3rd of March, and until the end of March, they were standing at at this place, and what we were talking, I was discussing with locals what they were doing. Yes, and I wrote one interview with one local that he told that one soldier, I sent this video to you. One soldier came to this like elder man and told that 40 soldiers of his like unit are killed, and they told that they don't know what to do. You know, they do not understand. So, for example, if they capture the town, yes, the city, they don't understand what they need to do, what they want to do. So they do not understand it just from their heart, you know. They
had no idea why they were there and what they were.
No idea how they can explain this capture, yes, this violence, these killings, this death. So it's after first phase when they came and they fixed, they just understood that they are here. Yes, they are in Ukraine. They are now made some, you know, some checkpoints. Made some captured some houses. So
lots of liquor, lots of food, lots of.
Yes. By the way, in that Kamaz that was destroyed, in their legs there were like expensive whiskey.
Really?
Bottles of expensive whiskey. Yes.
Which they obviously stole on the way there.
Bucha. Yeah.
Yes, and they asked trying to explain with locals what they can do next. So how they can liberate anyone, any person, any local, what they can do, and they could not find an answer. So I think that this is a very killing factor for them to start to destroy themselves, because the purpose is zero, no purpose at all. No one can explain. Also, I talked with our army, with our special units. They they are making talk. They're interviewing the soldiers, the captured soldiers, and they are asking, what is your motivation and what is your goal? Yes, and I spoke with a man who maybe talked with 10 of captured soldiers, and no one can explain why they're here. So what do you want to do? They could not explain what they want to do. So I mean, some ideology or some reasoning of this is Borodyanka, this is not Bucha. Oh, this is the house where they shit everything. They were shitting inside house on beds, usually on beds. This is the favorite place where they shit. They shit on bed.
Sorry, Yurii, just the way you say it is, it's like.
Yes, and this is, I think that this is the clue of I think the weakest point of Russian army. And you see that this is the same way they destroy building. Just stop, make stop. This is the unit that was destroyed by Ilya. And you see that multi-store buildings, they just pulled the bombs from airplane inside the middle of the building. So it was like like a card house. They were with plane. They were throwing air bombs to the middle of multi-store building, and they all are hit in the center, and they are just you see in the center, and most of buildings they are just they are clashed inside with this. It's like the same picture as they shoot with tank in the middle of the house. Yeah, just welcome hit. So this is 2 units. You see the 1 unit, 2nd unit, and KAMAZ is at the rear, about 100 meters from here. You see KAMAZ with whiskey. Yes, with whiskey. And I took some part of these vehicles with V sign. So this is closer to the center of Bucha.
Yurii, what day was this?
It was 2nd of March, 2nd of April, 2nd April. Yes.
So these were just people who had been killed.
Were you one of the first people there? Were there soldiers in there?
Yes, I was among the first people who visited the place. So it was like the next day after Bucha was captured. So this is the restaurant of where Ilya was fighting. So this was
where they did the ambush.
This is central road from north, from Belarusian border to Bucha, and they were waiting for them in this hotel.
So Yurii, this is when they were ambushing armored troops that were trying to reinforce Gostomel and Bucha.
Yes. They
what day was this ambush?
It was 3rd of March.
Okay.
It was 3rd of March, and it was about 3 p.m. So this is the place where Ilya was killed.
This or it was a compound, or
yes, this is inside this garden. The BMP just came in, and it was about 60 shots of BMP. It just smashed everything around. So it looks like they were just shooting. They were shooting just around. They don't know where from was ambush, and they were just like complete destroying, like Grozny. To repeat Grozny, but micro Grozny.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember telling someone in 2014, 2015 in the British government that if the Russians came into Ukraine seriously past Donbass, that they would make it like Grozny, and I was laughed at and said that no one would do that in a civilized country, and here we are seeing the Groznification of a large chunk of the suburbs of.
Oh, this is what they wrote.
The Russians wrote this?
Yes, the Russians, and this is Russians. I can translate you. тяни родной, скоро домой. It's like take and because we will fast will be home.
I don't understand that translation. Take fast.
Take like take something. Take something.
Steal, and we'll be home quicker.
Got it. I guess that's a strategy.
Yeah, well, it's
Steal
what
to
they
get
did,
home.
isn't it? It's what they did. And you read about the fact that they took all this stuff to the post office in Belarusia and shipped it home. And they were shipping home 60 kilos at a time from some people. 50, 60 kilos of stuff. Washing.
This is, by the way, this KAMAZ. And check back, Sam. Took back this. KAMAZ, show me this burned vehicle, truck. Oh, yes, stop it. So this is OMON, this is police truck. You see that armored windows. So the sides of truck, it's like with a steel shield, bullet, like not bulletproof, but violence proof. So it's like for protesters, packing protesters.
So Roskvardia, like National Guard police trucks?
Yes. It was like for Kadyrovians. Yes, for Kadyrovians. They were coming not to fight with military army, with the regular army, but
fight the local population.
Yes, fight with civilians. Yes.
Yeah,
wow.
That's what they're good at that in TikTok videos.
Yes. And this is Irpin town. Irpin town is like more like multi-store building, and you see all cars like this is like a first line of cars, but also inside these roads, a huge amount of cars. All tires are like someone was going and destroying tires.
Wow, look at that.
Well, Yurii, thank you for bringing that firsthand account back. We'll definitely share that. We'll cut out a short video of that and share what you showed. So Glenn and Yurii and David, couple things about the Russian military, Russian high command claim they're repositioning because they've accomplished all their objectives, which is clearly not the case. And there's a big debate right now. Actually, I wouldn't call it debate, but I think it's obvious that the soldiers that are being withdrawn from around Kiev are very undisciplined and have not done well in terms of maintaining probably their equipment, evacuating all their soldiers. They probably don't have accountability of who they brought in and brought out. And actually, one of the interesting parts I heard from a Russian former GRU Spetsnaz officer who was on our broadcast, who was speaking out against his country's invasion, he said, well, actually, the Russian casualty figures probably aren't a lie. They just legitimately are leaving soldiers behind so they don't have to count them as KIA, so they can doctor their numbers a little bit or a lot. And it seems like whatever forces are being pulled out of Belarus either need to go through 4 to 8 weeks minimum of rest, refit, rearming, re-equipping, or they just get sent piecemeal or in mass into the Donbass with no rest, re-equipping, or anything, and they just get thrown into the meat grinder, I guess you'd call it, in terms of whatever's happening around there. And the advantage to waiting is you get effective units, maybe, again. The disadvantage is Ukraine has interior lines. They've already moved their regular forces out to the Donbass, or they're moving them, leaving the territorial defense to defend Kyiv for any future attacks on Kyiv from Belarus, which seems unlikely given the state of the forces in Russia and the sabotage around Belarus that's going on in the rail community. And Russia has a really tough choice, because you either don't do what you should do, which is refit everyone, or you just callously throw them into combat without any refitting or rearming recovery operations. And more importantly, apparently these units, even in this area, didn't know each other. They were all kind of thrown together. They had no unit cohesion going into the war, and let alone coming out. Maybe they've got some cohesion now because they've done a lot of bad things together. But going into the Donbass, you don't just bring a soldier out there and all of a sudden they're going to be fighting effectively. So that takes us into what's going to happen next. And Yurii, you've fought in the Donbass as a regular army officer before, in 2015, 2016. It's a different fight out there, a different terrain, a bit more wide open, a bit more armored vehicle friendly, compared to around Kyiv, where ambushes and vegetation made dismounts against armor very effective. So let's go into what's going to happen next, because the next, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, as the Battle of Donbass shapes up, is going to be the decisive second round, whatever that is, of the war, and who knows how many rounds there are. But let's go into that.
Sam, I want to add some words about Ilya, because he was a hero. Yes, he was just from the first day of war, just in hours after first rockets hit Brovary Airport and in other cities. He called me and told Yurii, I finished the final edition of code is loaded to GitHub, and I will go to war because I need to. Just he didn't look around. He didn't think too much. He was just like a fighter from their deepest parts of their soul. And I will send all documents and all documentaries, all photographs to honor them by Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian government to be to mention by some honor. And I want to say that I'm proud of him. I'm proud that he that had the honor to work with him, to know him, because he is very bright, brave man. He always, we are discussing everything very broadly. He was a citizen of Belarus, and also he was married. His wife left very young, 27 years old. He was also 27 years old. And I want to ask those who see us to help her, to support her, maybe to write some word, warm word to her, because it's very important for her. Also, Ilya was the fifth son of his family. He had a big family in Minsk. And I would like to don't forget this hero. I will do my best to repay for his blood, and I ask you to to be persistent in our fight, because what we are doing, we are fighting against this terror slavery, against this enemy. So I will send you the requisites of this Karina, and please help her to live over that. This is very important.
Yeah, Yurii, one of the things we started doing on this show, and we're going to keep doing it, is when we feature, just like when you've come on, we want to, Ilya's story, let's definitely get the information for how to support his widow and his memory, and we'll share that with our audience. And we could actually do that again, Yurii, if you want to bring in some photos and some other things to memorialize them, because that's really important. And we're going to release next week, or in the next few weeks, a technical platform where any Ukrainian that we speak to, that we verify their case, can post their story without having to post their name, and people can donate to them directly money, whatever they need help with. So we can definitely put this on that and have people support her directly, Yurii. So that's going to be an honor to put his wife, his widow's story on there and get her the support she needs. So I look forward to that.
Yes.
Thank you, Yurii, for sharing. So let's go finally to what's next, Glenn, because unfortunately there's a lot more fighting, I think, ahead of us, and sacrifice like Ilya.
Well, I think one's got to assume from what's there, where they've pulled back and where they haven't pulled back, that there's still a desire to take all the ground, all the way from Sumy in the north, from Sumy all the way down to the Romanian border. So to cut off completely the sea from Ukraine from the sea, and then to expand the old Donbass right up to Kharkiv and if possible beyond. And even that might be too much for them, but you'll notice that they haven't withdrawn the troops around Sumy and Kharkiv, so that makes me think that they've still got an ambition to take those two if they can, because they're both of them, of course, are really close to the border.
So here's Kyiv in the center. These are Russian forces that have withdrawn to Sumy, to Belarus. Sumy, I believe, is right up here. No, Sumy's over here.
I can't say Sumy's over.
Sumy's up here, and this is Kharkiv area.
Yeah.
Leading, or no, is this Sumy and this is Kharkiv leading down to the Donbass?
Sumy's above Kharkiv, and this is a lot for them. I mean, the other, what is interesting is that most of the battle appears to be, the forces appear to be through the into the trench lines, which I find quite amazing, because I mean they're trying to, it's like they're trying to frontally batter the forces on the trench lines. Maybe it's just to hold them in place. I don't know, but I mean, of all the places that you're going to attack, attacking the well dug in trench lines is not the best place to attack. You could see that from the south. I mean, they were able to drive much more quickly and cover ground much more quickly in the south. So it's strange that they didn't put the emphasis down there and just drive north and around the trenches rather than trying to actually batter them. But okay, this is what they've been doing, and as you know, the effect or the defense was so strong from the Ukrainian side that the Russians had to conscript everybody up to sort of 60 years of age that was in the Donbass region. So if they've already done that, then there's not much further they can go, except by throwing in more troops, who also then will be fighting against quite hardened positions. So you can, if people can see the map, I mean, there is actually the possibility of what the Ukrainians call a boiler, where troops can be cut off. There is a possibility
right in this area.
Yeah. So I don't know, whether they'll concentrate on that. But if they do concentrate on that, then they also if they don't reinforce the south, they leave themselves vulnerable of losing Kherson. And maybe after Kherson, the chances for the Ukrainians to drive hard to cut off to cut off Crimea completely, which would be a good thing if they could do that, because that would really unsettle all the troops around who'd come out of Crimea, who then feel that their escape route has been eaten away. You can leave that map up there for a second, because you can actually see the
Kryvyi. That's where my fiance and in-laws are from.
And Zelensky, of course.
Yeah.
And you can see this red line that it's basically a very thin area of troops, which is quite capable of being cut off by the Ukrainians. And
Kherson is also surrounded by Ukrainians.
At the bottom, Kherson is now surrounded. So I think in the next 2 days we'll see something. I hope we'll see something positive for the Ukrainians down there. And each time there is something positive in areas like this, then it has to have an effect, a knock-on effect into other areas of people worrying that either that they're going to be surrounded, or that the whole plan is unraveling.
Yeah.
When you look at it down there, you can see. I mean, effectively, Russia controls now approximately 4 times, maybe 5 times more than they did before in Ukraine. So there's going to be, round 2 is going to be a lot of hard work to try and pull that back. And if Ukrainians want what they say they want, which is to take back Donbass and to take back Crimea, then there's going to be a round 3 and a round 4 and a round 5. Because they're not going to get all that in one go.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, Russia collapses. Unless, of course, the troops collapse.
Well, this is something, Glenn, I wanted to bring up, and we brought this up a few weeks ago, and people said, well, this could be a stalemate. There could be a ceasefire, which the atrocities in Bucha have just killed the peace talks, rightfully so. I think people are still discounting the possibility that the Russian military in the next 4 to 6 weeks could be. I believe there's a window if the West arms Ukraine with the ammunition, the anti-tank weapons, but most importantly the offensive weapons, tanks, mainly heavy artillery, a lot more drones and things that can be put out to use quickly. I think the Russian forces could be run off a lot quicker than is appreciated if Ukraine is rearmed properly, and that's really.
And it's well, I mean, what we're talking about really is just it's just ammunition. I mean, the thing about the Ukrainian side is I don't see a mobile battle. I just don't see it's going to happen, because they've never trained for it. They've not prepared for it. They don't have the psychology in their heads for doing this. But what I see is lots and lots and lots of small, blunt, hard, tactical battles. Small area, move forward. Take another small area, move forward. Which is in effect what happened outside of Kyiv.
Yeah.
We move in, we bite an area off, kill people, move forward, bite another area off, and the Ukrainian forces seem to be extremely good at that. I mean, they're good at it not just outside of Kyiv, but we're seeing exactly the same in Sumy and Kharkiv. I mean, but what you're not seeing that in the along the east, along the old trench lines, is because on that line the Russians are still in the attack. They're still in the heavy attack mode. They're still using artillery, rockets, everything to try and push the Ukrainian forces back and break them. So they've got to hold there, whatever happens, and that means ammunition more than anything else. It's ammunition, and more than anything else, it's artillery ammunition. And you know, you can actually see from some of the video things that the Ukrainians are down to firing 1 or 2 guns at times. They're not firing. They're not firing a battery. They're firing 1 or 2 guns, and that shows that they've got to be very accurate and precise with their firing, because they can't afford to waste ammunition, which the Russians don't seem to be worried about.
So, David, what are your thoughts going forward? Because this is a key moment, decision point for how Russia approaches the fight, whether they push fast and quick with little regard for effectiveness of rearming their troops, or they be more deliberate and therefore give Ukraine a lot more time to be deliberate. Which do you see happening, and which do you see as the most risk for both sides?
So a couple things I'm looking at. I don't think Transnistria is going to be a factor. You got the 3 BTGs there. I'm with Glenn. I don't see a way to reinforce that. They're not going to do it by air. That's incredibly high risk. By sea, Moldova's landlocked, right? You can get up a river, and there's one port on a river to get in there, but that's not going to happen. So I think they're going to keep what they have there for the time being. What I'm looking at is Russia still has a huge logistics problem to reposition the forces that they've moved out into Belarus, right? And you kind of hit on this, Sam, with the rail problem, because inside Belarus, the rail workers are they're kind of on strike right now, which is going to hinder Russia's ability to move 3 combined arms armies that are stuck in Belarus. So regardless of what condition those units are in, they can't get them out of Belarus right now anyway, because the rail network is effectively shut down. All right. So out of the 4 combined arms armies that Russia moved out, we'll call it northern Ukraine, only one of those has been able to reposition. Right. And that's the Second Guards. All right. And they're over near Sumy. But the other 3 combined arms armies, they're in Belarus. So until they can get them out of Belarus, they can't regenerate the combat power. Right? Whether that's equipment, that's personnel, combination thereof, and then reallocating them to the Eastern Theater, it's not going to happen anytime soon until they solve the rail problem, which seems to be compounding difficulty every day going forward. So that's a tremendous amount of combat power Russia has tied up in Belarus. Not going to get committed to the fight. Doesn't look like they're really repositioning, moving any other combat power to the Donbass. Right? It looks like they're relying on what they pulled out of the north to get into the Eastern Theater. So I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
This is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they're still got to feed them as well. You know, every day that they're there, they're still using fuel because they've got to heat themselves at night. And you know, if the bosses start telling them you can't heat the vehicles up, because remember it's still dropping below freezing at night. So they're still going to be burning fuel. They've not got food. Absolutely. They've got to bring food to them. And they're unhappy. Well, they may be happy if they've stolen enough fridges. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of them that are unhappy because their colleagues have been killed, and they might feel that they've been led up the garden path about all this.
You mean lied to, under-resourced, abandoned?
Abandoned, all these things. And if they're stuck there, and I think Dave is right. I mean, even if they want to move them, even if the railways are working, it's still going to take quite a while to shift that lot, because there's a lot there, and you've got to put them on the trucks, on the rail, and that takes quite a time. You don't put a battalion group onto a railway train in 5 minutes. It's a day's work. And okay,
it's a day for a battalion.
It's a day for a battalion. Then you got to move it. Then you got the train's got to come back. You got to move another train in. It's not. This is not a simple job at all, and they're not going to be driving them. They run out of fuel going short distance, so they're not going to be driving them all the way around there, because it is a long way. It's a long way. I mean, it must be the best part of 800 kilometers. If they want to get them round to Donbass, it's the best part of 1,000 kilometers.
And 1,400 to get them down to the southern front. And this is where
down past Mariupol or somewhere like that. Yeah.
And this is where they're most vulnerable from a force standpoint, in terms of very, very thin and probably tough occupation duty.
Correct. And remembering that occupation duty, where you're looking there, that actually the Russian troops are on the front of that. Behind that, you've got civil administration, police, and National Guard, who are not going to be very happy about being on the front line, because they're not frontline people.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Ukrainians break through the front line and start driving down the roads towards other places, you could see some very, very sharp movement towards Crimea. I mean, personally, I think if they put a brigade into Crimea, Crimea would empty, because there are almost no combat soldiers in Crimea. You've got air defense, you've got ships, sailors, administrative people, logistics. So if you actually get through down into Crimea and start punching people, I tell you, most of them will be across that bridge as fast as they can go out of Crimea. Absolutely. I mean, you already saw the pictures week and a half ago of the civilians trying to get out of Crimea, that have got flats and things there, and the FSB and people trying to get out. The others will leave even faster. It'll be the road to Basra. So they've got the Ukrainians have got to get down to Crimea as quickly as possible and get over that bridge into Crimea. And that will unravel huge amounts of everything. If they can do that, it will unravel, because Putin will, if they get into Crimea, Putin will his head will blow.
Well, and that actually brings up another point, which is, if his head blows, other things could blow. And there's a strong risk, which is not debated in this, and we don't have time for it, but something that I think President Zelensky and the Ukrainian forces are mindful of, which is the non-zero possibility of tactical nuclear weapons and chemical weapons, biological weapons being introduced on the battlefield. So it's, I think, probably the next 4 to 6 weeks could be very surprising in terms of what happens in multiple parts of the battlefield, or it could be both sides taking their time to get ready for the pending clash in the Donbass. But you're right, Glenn, the South is definitely something to watch.
It's vulnerable. It's really vulnerable, I'm sure. And
I think another thing the Ukrainian government is very aware of is, if what just happened in Bucha and Irpin and all these other towns outside of Kyiv is any indicator, they have to be as anxious as possible, as, let's call it, there's a huge sense of urgency to liberate as many towns as they can, because
Yeah.
we know that what's happening in Melitopol and
Yeah.
Kherson and Berdyansk and all these towns in the south is not good.
Yeah.
And that's where, and Mariupol, of course, getting
Mariupol's the worst.
to relieve Mariupol, where they've introduced mobile crematoriums, according to the Mariupol City Council. It's unfortunately, we might never know the true scale of, at least with evidence of the murder that's going on in Russian occupied territories. So that just gives another, I think, sense of urgency to
Yeah.
the Ukrainian side. And with that, Yurii, I'd like you to kind of close out on the sense that you and your friends in the Ukrainian military and territorial defense are feeling in terms of the motivation and desire and the will that the Ukrainian side has right now to win this.
I want to add some information for borderline of existing Donbass front line, because when I served there, they were building 3 lines of defense. It's like a complete engineering, total, very strong engineering system of 3-line defense. And as far as I know now, that they could not even break through the first line of defense. They could not take the place where I was serving with the 93rd Brigade. So it was like опытный водянец, so it's just airport, Donetsk airport region, and Avdiivka.
Right in this area?
Yes, and
Avdiivka.
they are not, they have not crossed that part of line. Yes, you see the Avdiivka, Donetsk, and you have just 2 rows. Yes, that rows. So they could not just a few meters. They could not move a few meters ahead. And after Avdiivka, we have in 10 kilometers the second line of defense, and in 20 kilometers the third line of defense.
Yeah.
And it's just not like temporary blindages. It's a fortification system with concrete buildings, with concrete system of communication, with a good position for defense. So it's not worse than Bilogorodka hills.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe not so proven by time as Bilogorodka hills, because they are 1,000 years. But
your hometown, yeah.
Yes, but still, they have, and we have a very strong defense line here. About moral and level of motivation, I just a few days ago I visited my wife's brother, and he is here near Kyiv. And also another employee from Western Ukraine. They were attracted to Territory Defense Battalion, and they are here in Kyiv, near Kyiv, about 30 kilometers. So all territory defense is also regrouping and is very strongly motivated. I want to say that about 100 people from my territory defense, like voluntary unit, came to the army, like regular with a regular contract. Usually, this veterans. This is veterans who fought in Donbass, and they became now regular army officers and soldiers. And also we have like a strong dynamics of moving territory from west to east. And this is quite a huge power, and motivation is really strong. So, for example, for today, even after Russians are not near Kyiv, I receive 10 calls from support organization, including Spirit of America, by the way. Sam.
Yep.
The guys who financed Army FM in 2016.
Yeah.
Jake, Jim Hague. I want to thank him and please mention him. He's in our talk because I want to thank him. He is very strong, and
I'm talking to him tomorrow, so I'll do that.
Yes, please, because another support delivery from him I forwarded from territory defense to the east, because it's more they need it much more than we here in Kyiv now. We will receive our part later. We can receive it later. So we still have a huge good logistic. Also, I know that, for example, my volunteers, they are sending resources like generators, also special equipment like night vision systems, also armored vests, a lot of staff cars. I think that for only my territory defense received maybe about 30 to 40 trucks, volunteers, financed by volunteers. And I think that no Russian army can receive. This is special trucks adopted for all road 4x4 all road wheel, and I feel that everyone is ready to fight and go to the east, to the south. Also, I want to say that Azov in Mariupol are fighting very good, very strong, and they still have a strong position. They are well. They have good logistics. They have armor. So I think that they will keep Mariupol until we will break this line of south with Russians. So my forecast is next month will be very important, and we have a lot of today was the first day with the temperature about 15 degrees Celsius. The green trees became more and more green, and it's much easier to kill Russians from bushes covered with green leaves. Yes.
It's hunting season now, right, Yurii?
Yes, I also have to say that we have a strong connections with inside the south with the civilians. They also have territory defense under coverage, and I think that a lot of surprises will wait for Russians next weeks.
We spoke to Sergey, who was part of the resistance, and he promises us that there's a good behind the lines resistance going on, and I certainly agree. Well, Yurii, Glenn, Dave, thank you as always for joining us. Yurii, thank you specifically for humanizing what happened in Kiev with your friend Ilya. I look forward to supporting him and his fiance, his memory and his fiance, when we can feature that very shortly, and make sure we never forget him and what he died for. And let's always keep that at the front of what we do as we talk about this, because this isn't some academic historical study. This is a real event going on right now with people we all care about involved. And I just wanted to make sure we always keep that at the forefront. And Yurii, look forward to seeing what other connections you make that we can feature, on the East or in the South, as you speak to people from the territorial defense units that need help. Let's bring them on and feature what they're doing and try and support them directly. And Glenn, Dave, thank you as always. You're our favorite enduring guests, as people ask and say they really gain a lot from hearing both of you and your insights. Two Left and Lieutenant Colonel retireds from the oldest alliance, the UK and US militaries, and appreciate that. And finally, for those of you watching, if you've enjoyed our broadcasts, we exist. The Borderlands Foundation exists as a nonprofit to support refugees and people inside Ukraine who've been affected by the war, whether it's widow of Ilya or people inside of Ukraine who don't want to leave, or people who've left Ukraine. Anyone who has financial needs or other needs, we're going to have a site released very soon that allows you to see their story and contribute directly to them. And you can count on us vetting with our staff every single person that's put up there, so it's not a scam. It's a real person with a real need that we've spoken to, and that's what we're committed to doing to support the country through this. And hopefully also raise awareness of what's really going on. And Glenn and David, I'll remind everyone, if you want to go back and see all the past shows, way before it was known to most people, we predicted Russia was in real trouble on the battlefield. It seems like we've been consistently a week or two ahead of, let's call it conventional pundits and wisdom on what's happening. And I hope that what we've talked about today, some of that comes to pass, because it sounds like there's some real opportunities for Ukraine to make some progress before Russia knows what hit them. And let's see if that happens. I think a lot of that's dependent on Western countries answering the call with the Lend-Lease program that was just renewed, that historical document. Let's hope that gets signed and leveraged. But most importantly, it really comes down to, and it always has, depending on people like Yurii inside Ukraine, who actually make things happen without the support that they should have been getting all this time. So thank you, Yurii, for all that you're doing inside Ukraine with your countrymen, and we look forward to trying to support as much as we can.
Yes, thank you, and
Thank you, guys.
all Americans, including Jim Hake, and I would like to invite him to maybe to next talk, because it's very important. Yes, so it would be a great talk, because we also connected with some good memories about Army FM, about building a media system around frontline. So he visited most of territories, and we visited Mariupol together with him personally. Yes, and visited the house of homeless children. Yes, together with him, and it was unforgettable, memories.
I'll tell him he's got to come on.
Yes, and I think that he will, I don't know, maybe he will cry looking at these maps.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, guys, I've got to go.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
See you
everyone.
all soon. Okay,
Thank you. See you guys.
Yeah, bye then.
Bye.